The sign used to say, "The Ridgeway Hotel, established 1927. Now the letters are cracked, half of them missing. Only the way still glows in faint neon when the generator decides to work. The Ridgeway stands alone on a forgotten road in northern Colorado. Once it was a mountain retreat, marble floors, grand chandeliers, a ballroom that looked out over the pines. Now it's nothing more than dust and echoes. And for the last 3 years, it's been home to one person. Her name is Claire Warren, 30 years old, cleaner, caretaker, and the last employee of a hotel that officially closed a decade ago. Every morning, Claire unlocks the front doors, even though no one ever walks through them. She sweeps the lobby, wipes the counter, checks the mail slot, where nothing has arrived since 2014. It's not really a job anymore. It's just routine. The only thing keeping her from thinking too much. Sometimes she tells herself she's staying because of the paycheck. The property owner still sends money, enough to keep the lights running on the first floor. Other times she admits the truth. She stays because she's afraid to leave. The Ridgeway has a way of doing that to people. Locals say the hotel was cursed long before it was abandoned. Back in the 1950s, a guest went missing, a woman traveling alone, just like Claire. Her name was Evelyn Hart. She checked into room 313 one evening and was never seen again. When the staff went to look for her, the room was spotless, bed made, suitcase gone, not a single fingerprint left. The only clue was a note at the front desk that said, "Thank you for the room. I won't be checking out." After that, guests began to complain of whispers in the walls, cold spots in the hallways. Some swore they saw a woman standing at the end of the corridor, just standing there, smiling faintly before disappearing. Claire doesn't believe in ghosts. Or at least she tells herself she doesn't. She's cleaned every room in this place. She's seen the mold, the rot, the wiring that hums through the walls. She knows the whispers are just bad insulation. Still, sometimes, when she walks past room 313, even though it's supposed to be sealed shut, she could swear she hears something, like breathing. At night, the hotel changes. The silence becomes heavier, thicker, like the air itself is watching. She started to notice small things, doors that are open when she's certain she closed them, lights flickering in rooms with no power, and once, just once, the old elevator moving on its own. There's no one else here. There can't be. But every time she passes the front desk, the guest book is open to a new page. Fresh ink. Names she doesn't recognize. Dates that haven't happened yet. There's a story the townspeople tell, that the Ridgeway was built on top of an older foundation. Before it was a hotel, it was a sanatorium. Before that, a mining camp. And before that, no one really knows. The ground remembers, they say. And sometimes the walls do too. Claire's shift ends at midnight, but lately, she's been staying later and later. She says it's because she can't sleep. But the truth is, she started to dream of the hotel even when she's awake. Every corridor looks the same now. Every door seems to lead back to the same place. And sometimes, when she catches her reflection in the dark glass of the lobby windows, it doesn't look like her anymore. They say you can't lose your mind somewhere that's already empty. But they've never stayed at the Ridgeway. Nights at the Ridgeway always begin the same way. A storm outside, a clock that doesn't work, but somehow still ticks. And that feeling, the one Claire could never explain, like the building itself is waiting for something. She tells herself she doesn't believe in ghosts. But after so many nights alone, she's learned that silence can sound a lot like someone breathing beside you. The lights on the third floor never worked right. Sometimes they'd flicker for a second, just long enough for her to think she saw someone standing at the end of the corridor, and then total darkness. That night, she was cleaning near the old ballroom, a place that hadn't seen a guest since 1981. Broken chandeliers, dust-covered mirrors, the smell of wet carpet and rust. She was humming to herself, trying to fill the silence, when she heard it. Claire froze. There was no fourth floor. Not anymore. She took a breath, looked up at the ceiling, and saw dust falling. Just a few particles drifting down, like someone was walking right above her. Then the footsteps started again. Closer. And now, they were behind her. Claire spun around, heart pounding so hard it hurt. The corridor behind her was empty. Nothing but flickering light and peeling wallpaper. But something had changed. The air smelled different, sharp, metallic, like wet coins. And there was a sound. She followed it. The sound was coming from the old suite, room 312. The one next to the one that didn't exist. Claire whispered to herself, "Just the wind. It's just the wind." But the air in the room didn't move. It felt still, heavy. She noticed something odd. The mirror above the dresser wasn't dusty like everything else. It looked freshly cleaned. She stepped closer. Her reflection looked normal at first, tired, pale, hair tied back. But then, behind her reflection, in the mirror, there was a door. Except there was no door behind her. Just wall. She turned around. Nothing. When she looked back into the mirror, the door was gone. But her reflection was still facing it. She stumbled backward, knocking over a chair. Her flashlight flickered, and for a second she thought she saw words scrawled across the wallpaper. Faint, almost invisible under the light. Check-in complete. Then everything went black. When the lights came back, the room was empty again. But there was something new in the hallway. A trail of wet footprints, bare, human, leading away from room 312 and stopping right in front of room 313. You shouldn't be here. They say madness begins with a sound you can't explain. For Claire, it began with footsteps that wouldn't stop following her. By the third week, Claire stopped trying to explain things. The sounds, the footprints, the mirrors that sometimes didn't reflect her at all. She told herself she was just tired. But every night something new appeared. A chair moved. A door that had been sealed for years, slightly open. And always those wet footprints. They led to room 313. Every night, every time. The door didn't exist on any blueprint. No number plate. Just faded marks on the wallpaper, where the metal digits must have been. But she knew. She knew it was there. The handle was cold. Too cold. Like metal left outside in the snow. When she turned it, the sound was wrong. Not the squeak of rusted hinges, more like something breathing out. The smell hit first. Not rot. Not dust. Something older, like burnt air and rain. Inside, everything was covered in sheets, perfectly arranged. No dust, as if someone had just cleaned. She shone her light across the room. There was furniture, a writing desk, and on the wall, a painting she'd never seen before. A woman, standing in front of the Ridgeway Hotel. Her eyes were dark, her face expressionless. But what froze Claire completely was the detail. In the reflection of the hotel window behind the painted woman, she could see herself. Tiny, blurred, holding a mop. The painting wasn't old. It was new. Fresh brushstrokes, still faintly smelling of oil. She looked down. The footprints were back. wet, leading from the doorway to the bed. And under the bed, something moved. Claire didn't scream. She couldn't. Her voice was gone, stuck somewhere between her chest and the silence around her. The thing under the bed shifted again, and then she saw it. A hand. Small, pale, perfectly still. It wasn't reaching for her. It was pointing to the nightstand. On the nightstand lay the guest book. Open. One line, written neatly in the center of the page. Claire Warren, checked in, 2024. She stared at it for a long time, then turned toward the mirror above the dresser, the same as in every other room. Only this one wasn't reflecting her anymore. It was showing the lobby, the front desk, and behind it, someone standing. She ran. Through the hall, down the stairs, the sound of her own footsteps chasing her through the corridors. But the hotel had changed again. Every hallway led to another hallway. Every door opened to the same room. Room 313. And somewhere, deep in the dark, the phone kept ringing. Checkout time is over. Some rooms were never meant to be opened, and some guests were never meant to leave. The storm had passed, but the silence it left behind felt heavier than the thunder. The hotel was completely still. The only movement came from the flicker of the hallway lights, stuttering like a dying heartbeat. Claire sat at the front desk, the guest book still open before her, her name written in black ink that hadn't been there yesterday. She tried not to look at it, but the words seemed to breathe on their own, as if the paper itself was alive. She had locked room 313. Twice. She had shoved a chair under the handle, nailed the doorframe shut, even hung a sheet over it so she wouldn't have to see it anymore. But when she walked past it that morning, the chair was gone. The nails lay scattered across the carpet. The sheet had disappeared. The door was slightly open. She didn't look inside. She couldn't. She just kept walking, pretending she hadn't seen it, pretending the hotel hadn't started to hum. It wasn't a sound, not exactly. More like a vibration under the floorboards, as though the building itself was waking up after a long sleep. At noon, the intercom crackled to life. It hadn't worked in years. The front desk connected to the old staff quarters, but the wires had been cut long before she arrived. Still, the small red light blinked steadily, and then she heard it. A faint voice, barely a whisper. "Housekeeping to room 313. She froze. The words were calm, routine, almost polite, but no one else was here. She stepped closer, her breath fogging the metal speaker. "Who is this?" The static deepened, hissed softly, then broke apart into laughter. Not cruel, not mocking, just wrong. Human, but distant, as if someone were speaking through water. "You're late, Claire." The intercom clicked off. She stood there for a long time, unable to move. Her heart beat too fast. Her throat felt dry. The red light stopped blinking. Everything went still again, like nothing had happened. But when she turned to walk away, something changed in the lobby. The chandelier was lit. She hadn't seen it glow once in 3 years, not even when the generator was running. Now it shone bright and golden, the crystals trembling faintly in the air. And in that light, she saw them, faint outlines, people in evening clothes, standing perfectly still across the lobby. At first, she thought they were mannequins. But then one of them moved its head. Another raised a glass. The room filled with a soft, impossible music, a melody she couldn't place, old and slow, full of static and dust. The ballroom doors were open again, the same ones she had locked months ago. Claire took a step forward, then another. The air grew colder as she moved closer. The figures began to blur, like smoke trapped in glass. She could see their faces now, pale, distorted, the kind of faces you see in a reflection that isn't yours. One of them turned toward her. It was the woman from the painting, Evelyn Hart. She was smiling just slightly. Her lips moved, but the sound didn't come from her mouth. It came from the intercom on the wall behind Claire. Check-in complete. Claire backed away, her hands shaking. The figures in the ballroom began to fade, one by one, until only Evelyn remained, standing where no floorboards should exist. Then, the chandelier went dark. The music stopped. The room was empty again. She ran to the intercom, ripped the cord from the wall, and threw it across the lobby. But as soon as it hit the ground, it buzzed again, whispering her name over and over, the voice dissolving into static. She didn't sleep that night. She sat by the front desk, watching the empty hallways through the reflection in the lobby's glass door. But something was wrong with the reflection. The clock behind her was moving backward. And in the corner, where the corridor turned toward room 313, she could see a shadow pacing slowly from wall to wall. The next morning, she found a new entry in the guest book. Same name, same handwriting, different date, tomorrow's. That was when she understood. The hotel wasn't haunted. It was hungry. By the end of that week, Claire had stopped marking the days. The calendar behind the desk still said October 2019, though she knew that couldn't be right. Outside, the sky never changed. It was always evening, a pale, colorless light that pressed itself against the windows like fog. The world beyond the hotel had faded into silence. She tried leaving once. She packed a bag, took the master key, and walked down the long driveway that cut through the trees. The road wound down into nothing. After 10 minutes, she saw the same sign again. The Ridgeway Hotel, established 1927. After 20, the same puddle she'd stepped over before. By 30, she was standing back at the front doors. The key in her hand was gone. She laughed softly, a broken sound that echoed up the marble walls. That night, she lit every lamp on the first floor. The rooms glowed dimly, as if through water. She walked from door to door, whispering to herself that there was nothing there, that she wasn't part of this place. But every door she opened showed the same room, the same bed, the same painting, the same smell of rain and burnt air. Room 313. It didn't matter which handle she touched, they all led there. The hotel had folded in on itself, as though it had chosen only one room to exist. On the bed sat the guest book, open, waiting. She turned a page. Blank, another. Blank. The next one wasn't. There was a single line, written in perfect handwriting. "Thank you for your service, Claire. You've kept the room so clean." The ink shimmered wetly, though the pen lay dry beside it. For a long moment she stood still, staring at the page. Then she tore it out, crumpled it in her hand, and walked to the lobby. The chandelier flickered again, just once. The mirrors on the far wall caught her reflection. Hundreds of them, each one slightly different. In one, she was younger. In another, she wasn't there at all. In one, someone else was standing where she should be. Evelyn Hart, the woman in the painting, the one who never checked out. She was smiling in every reflection. Claire pressed her palms against the glass, trying to breathe, but the air was too thin. It felt like the walls were leaning closer, like the entire hotel had drawn a breath and was holding it, waiting for her next move. She ran to the intercom, slammed the receiver down, and whispered, "I want to leave." There was no answer, only static. Then a soft click. A man's voice this time, calm, distant, precise. "You already have." The intercom died. Claire turned toward the front doors. They were open. For the first time since she arrived, the world outside looked real. Trees moving, light shifting. She stepped forward, almost afraid to hope. But when she crossed the threshold, she realized it wasn't morning at all. It was a photograph. A flat image of a road, nailed to the frame. Behind her, the lobby was gone. The floor was gone. The air was heavy and white, filled with the sound of her own pulse. The hotel had folded her inside itself. She looked down and saw the guest book in her hands again. Only now, it was smaller, like a check-in card. Her name already written. The date, blank. Something touched her shoulder. Cold. Weightless. She didn't turn around. The voice came soft, almost kind. "Housekeeping never checks out." She nodded once, slowly, and the weight lifted. The book closed itself. The light faded. When the Ridgeway Hotel was finally demolished 3 years later, the crew found nothing inside but a single page caught beneath a cracked tile. The ink had run, but a few words were still visible. Room for one more. This was another story that won't be told on television. But here, we keep them all. Subscribe if you want to hear what happens after midnight.